This could possibly be one of the most important podcasts I've ever created because this solves a very specific problem, or this is an exploration and hopes to solve a very specific problem, which is we all want to achieve certain things. We all want certain big things out of our own lives. Yet, at most times, we don't know how to achieve them. And two, we are often distracted by this one specific beast or a monster that I called the optionality paralysis, which is you are paralyzed and plagued by so many options that are available in front of you to a point where you're not able to take action on the thing that you want to possibly achieve. And that is the thing that I want to explore and try to solve today. Because something struck me this freaking morning. And this, I feel this is art right here. You are faced with a problem. You don't know what the ending is. You feel like, well, you know what the ending is. You're sitting down to speak, to write, and to talk about these things. And that is what I'm doing today. So, I often have a lot of goals and things that I want to achieve in my life. And there are very specific goals that I have for each categories of my life, right? Different kinds of things, art, drawing, business, fitness, and all these things. And I've always had big goals from the very get-go. When I was young, I had big, massive, crazy goals, crazy expectations, as to what I need to achieve by this timeline. I need to be this when I was 21. I need to be that when I'm 27. I need to be this when I'm 35. And I need to be that when I'm 40. It's like this marker. If I don't achieve that by the time I turn 21, I'm a failure. If I don't achieve that by the time I turn 27, I'm not successful. By the time, if I don't achieve this very specific financial goal, by the time I'm 35, I'm not put together. By the time I'm 45, if I'm not achieved this thing, if I'm not a billionaire by 50, I'm a failure. Oh, man. This is my thinking. This used to be my thinking to most extent. And over time, it has changed. Over time, it has changed. But there is a very specific problem right here that I want to address. Having big goals and aim is not the problem right here. That is not the thing. Because there is a very specific function to having big goals. Having big goals, the only thing that matters when it comes to having big goals is it redefines the way you act in the present moment. For example, if you were to chase a large goal versus a small and a medium goal, most of the time they might both take the same amount of time to achieve it. Approximately. No, let's not be completely naive, which I was, and say that, small and big goals take the same amount of time. They don't take the same amount of time. They take slightly more effort, right? Slightly more, but it's only slightly more. And you would rather go for the big goal. But the payoff is massive. A great example would be, like they say, the first number one tennis player gets paid probably 3 or 4 times more than the second player. And the difference between them is probably it's not tennis player. I think it's running. Number one runner in the world, right? The 100-meter runner or something like that is like the first one gets paid 10 times more, whereas the second one gets paid like 10 times less. And the difference between the first and the second one is often in seconds, milliseconds, microseconds, 0.002 seconds. I saw this somewhere. I don't know the exact scientific proof, this thing. Don't tell me to point that stuff out. I saw this a long time ago and made me realize this one important principle, which is the difference between the big and the small/medium goal is very little. The effort it takes to get that is very little, but the payoff is exponentially large. A personal example from my own life. If we put 10 hours into a video versus 30 hours into a video, which is 3 times more, the result we get is not 3 times the views. It's often 10, 15, 20 times the views that we get. And the video has a longer shelf life. More people see it, more people watch it for a long period of time, and more people come across the stuff that we make. The effort is 3 times more, but the payoff is 10 times more. So you'd rather go for the larger one rather than the smaller one, right? So, but that is not the thing that I want to sort of explore right here. That I want to explore is options. We all want things in life. We all want to achieve big goals in life, but we are faced with multiple options. So many options. Should I go this way? Should I go that way? Should I go the other way? This, that, this, that, this, that, this, that, right? The thing is, I had a session with one of my mentors on business. He's also a friend and I'm mentoring him on his art. But I would consider him my mentor in terms of business. And we were sitting down to talk about things. And this was a third or fourth conversation on business. And I was explaining to him with all these detailed spreadsheets and maps and documents on how I'm going to do this, how I'm going to do that, how I'm going to do this. These are all the options that I'm present with, my friend. What should I do? What should I go? Which particular direction should I go with? Right? And by the fourth time, he's like, Cash, buddy. He said it in a very nice way. He's Canadian, so he's very nice. He's very nice. And he said this, Cash, flip a coin, man. Right? All of the things, these were the exact words, right? I didn't understand it then, but it struck me this morning. It's probably been like over 2 months since we had that conversation. He said, all of the options that you're showing right now at this moment will work. So you just got to pick one. I was like, okay, sure. I came back. I didn't pick one. I was just thinking. I was always thinking. I was thinking for a long time. Which route is the best way to go? And here's the lesson. Here's the micro lesson, the larger lesson that we're trying to sort of explore and learn today. You and me, we're both trying to do this. The micro lesson is the way you know which way is right is not by thinking about things, but rather by doing. So the best way to know is to do. The best way to know is to do, not to think, to do. I'm going to repeat that again so that I remember. The best way to know what you want to do is to do. Simple. But we don't do. We think. We strategize. We plan for days and weeks and months and years. And for me, this was extremely frustrating personally for me because I was trying to think about this particular direction as to the way I want to take my business forward for the past 1.5 years. I was doing, mind you, but I was not doing enough. I was doing enough to have some clarity, but not enough clarity. Obviously, you don't need to have the best forms of clarity in order to move forward. I like the military rule, which the military people use, which is 70% is good to go. Just need to know 70%. 60 is even fine. 50, yeah, you might want to slightly debate about it until you get to 60 and 70. Once you know 70% have the information, know that's not going to be perfect, know that you're not going to know what's going to happen in the alternate decision. You just pick one and do, and you live with it. Right? You know what? You don't live with it actually. Once you get to make the decision, there are some upsides and downsides. You massively scale down the downsides and massively scale up the upside. You've picked an option. You've married an option. Now make it work. Right? So that is the thing. That's how you do it. You pick one. To know, you have to do. And to do, you have to choose. And to choose, you just need to have 70% clarity. And once you've chosen and once you're doing and once you've done, if you don't like the result, you don't live with it, but rather you make it right. I like this quote by this dude named, Elliot Hulse. He used to say this thing. Strongman coach, by the way. He says, successful people don't make the right decisions. They make a decision and they make it right. That was fantastic when I heard about it. They don't make the right decision. They make a decision and they make it right. You make a decision. You make it right. Obviously, sometimes it's better to make decisions that you can live with on a day-to-day basis rather than on a week-to-week, on a month-to-month basis. Meaning sometimes the rewards you're going to get for something is going to take longer rather than for other things. If you can have games, like for example, if you're going to play something, if you're going to choose a decision where you're going to have instantaneous feedback from day to day, week to week, it's much better than making a decision where you have only instantaneous feedback, like 6 months to a year. Once a month, once in 6 months and once in 6 years, feedback is not a great thing. You need to know if your decision is slightly working or not working, and it's better to get feedback. So that is the thing. So back to this stuff. The story where I can't choose. The man said, Keshav, pick one. Pick one. Everyone says this. We all have this problem. We all have multiple passions and things that we want to go through and explore in life. Yay, kumbaya. We all want these things and we have multiple passions. It's like, pick one. We can't pick one. It's too hard to let go of the other things. It's hard to say no. And here's what I learned about saying no. It's less about saying no and more about saying yes to the same things over and over again. That is how loyalty is built. Loyalty towards one thing is built. Commitment towards one thing is built. It's about saying yes to the current things rather than saying no. Yes, you do need to say no, but it's also about saying yes to the same thing that you have picked, somewhat similar things over and over and over and over and over again, to a point where saying yes has become the automatic response rather than saying no to the things that you don't want. You have multiple passions. I have fitness. I have this. I have that. I have this. What should I say yes to? Pick one, do it, live with it, make it right, and learn to say yes to the same thing and no to the other things eventually. Learn to say more of yes than less of no, right? Optionality paralysis. We have multiple things that we want to do, yet we can't do. And what eventually happens is we never choose, and we live for a long enough period of time only to look back and say, I've just spent my time thinking. All I've done for this past so many years is just sit down and think. It's worse. It's the worst place to be in. You cannot think your way to knowing. You have to do your way to knowing. To know, you have to do. You gotta do. You have to do. You have to pick one. And here's how you pick things. The reason why you don't pick things, or one of the very many reasons why you don't pick things, is because you fear that thing might be quote unquote wrong. It might be the wrong thing. And here's another thing that I've learned from my very good old Canadian friend, which is this. If you were to do heads or tails, one had each decision on each side. The way you pick things is like this. You choose things where if it's heads, you win, and tails, you do not lose much. That is how you pick. You pick in a way where if you flip a coin, heads you win, and tails, the consequences of you choosing that thing is completely less to none. That's how you pick. Some decisions some decisions are not like that, right? Like for example, marriage. It's not heads or tails. Actually, it can be. Actually, you just make sure you choose a person who's like, yeah, heads you win, man. They are the person you think they are. If everything goes well, that's going to be a nice marriage, right? And tails, what is the worst case scenario? Can I live with that? Great. Can I not only live with that, can I correct it or make it better? Great. That is the person you go with. That is the person you go with. I'm so glad that part of my life is figured out, at least, right? So heads you win, tails you don't lose much. So sort of connecting this, how do you choose? You choose asymmetric options where you win. If you do it, you get to win a lot. If you lose, you're just going to walk away with a scratch. And you do a whole bunch of those things, you're going to learn a lot of those things, and the clarity of your thought has been elevated to know you have done. You have done to know. That's the thing. To know you have to do. So, where are we getting at, right? Where are we going? We have these multiple options. We have created some frameworks as to say, how do you go about things? Now, we also need to explore that what if you don't choose? What if you don't pick? In fact, why having multiple options and multiple things going on often never leads you pretty much anywhere? Or is that the case? One of my favorite entrepreneurs, Alex Hormozi, that the dude's sayings are often very good to a point where it takes time for me to unpack some of his frameworks. And I think I'm at one of that places where I'm unpacking one of that framework, which is, he says, a lot of business folks at the start, they have multiple businesses to get to something. And they have multiple businesses because they feel like they have their options open. They can choose one, right? They can choose something, and they all hope that one of those things click. And he says, here's the thing, bucko. He doesn't use the word bucko, but I'm sort of adding that over here. Here's the thing, bucko. I'm using it for dramatic reasons. All of these businesses could work, but none of them will work because you're doing all of these. Same thing goes with what my good old Canadian friend was saying, which was, Keshav, all of these options could work. Pick one. But he forgot. He was too nice to not say the thing because he's an experienced gentleman. And he's quite the gentleman. And he was like, he didn't say it. And I sort of read it, this is facial expression. It's just like, none of these would work because you're not doing anything. You're not doing enough volume in that particular space for that thing to work. So you got to pick and you got to do volume. How much volume? You got to do 100 repetitions. And that will get you not the king, not to the crown. It won't get you to the top of the mountain. 100 repetitions of some hardcore skill will get you from 0 to 1, A to B. Then you have C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T to U, V, W, X, Y, Z left. Same goes with 0 to 1. Then you have 2 to infinity left. 100 repetitions. How does it look like? Oh, I want to learn drawing. What kind of art? Character design. Great. Should I do painting? Maybe. Should I do, mandala art? No. Should I do crafts? Maybe. Yeah. Well, let me just pick one. No, let me just pick one and do 100 repetitions. Great. Will that make me Picasso? No, my friend. It will not. Wait, you're saying that me doing 100 repetitions of something for the next 100 days, every single day where I put in hours of work, will not make me a Picasso? What are you saying, man? I thought I'll be Da Vinci by the end of 100 days. No, my friend. It will make you go from 0 to 1. That is the first step. What? The first step takes 100 days? That's too much, man. Welcome to the real world, where things take time, where great things and good things take time, where Ponzi schemes and scams don't take time. The good things and the great things take time. And if you want great things, if you want to do great things, then you got to put in the time. Time is the investment. Time is the currency that we are investing. And we are often scared of losing that time because we fear making wrong decisions. And that is a valid fear. This does not negate that fear. We're not making a decision because we are scared that we might go in the wrong direction and lose, not money, time. It's a valid fear. But the problem is you lose time thinking. You know what a better way to lose time? Testing, experimenting. How do you know? You do. And how do you do? How do you test? Here's another framework from Tim Ferriss. He always says, I always do. I conduct my life in 2-week experiments and 6-month projects. What does that mean? Oh, I want to do something. I don't know if I should sort of commit to it for the next 3 months to 4 months to test it out. Well, 3 to 4 months is quite a long enough period of time, man. How do I know if it's the right thing for me? Well, my friend, now here's the greatest thing that you can do, where scientists have been doing for centuries, for millennia, to improve the quality of living for, mankind. What have they been doing? They've been doing this magical thing called experimentation, where they try something and see what they may get. They're not attached to the results. They're just curious what results they'll get. Right? That's a scientist. Maybe you should adopt that principle. Maybe you should run a 2-week experiment, which is not that much time. Would you rather think your way for 2 weeks? No, most things can be tested in 2 weeks. Most things can be made into a smaller minimum viable solution and can be tested in 2 weeks. So, test it in 2 weeks. If it works, if it's something you like, do it for 6 months. Take up a 100-day project, take a 6-month project, and that will get you through your first step. That is a thing. So, what are we getting at? We all have things we want to achieve in life, big things. We should have big goals. We should aim big so that it increases the vehicle of our action. Aim big, but don't try to lock yourself in as to by what time should I achieve it by. If you are aiming something big and great, most times it will take time, years, decades. They say successful people, or you can measure the success of a person by the time horizon they think in. If someone thinks in weeks and months, versus someone who thinks in 5 years and 10 years and decade chunks, right? So think in decades, aim big, massive, have a vision as to say a potential as to where things things can go to, right? Aim big, massive, have a vision. Don't try to lock yourself in. Try to have a goal, a very specific aim in the short run, which is sort of like a minimum viable product, the smallest version, your 2-week quote-unquote experiment of that larger vision, and have expectations in terms of the action. And if you have multiple options, know that you're not going to think your way to those options. You're going to do your way to those options. And the way you do it is you run a 2-week experiment. Run a 2-week experiment. You will learn something. And if you think that is good, run a 100-day experiment. Once you run a 100-day experiment, then you will know that you've gone from 0 to 1. You've gone from 0 to 1. And guess what? That 3 months is going to go anyway. That year of you spending your time thinking is going to go anyway. So if you're such individuals who have been trying to choose between multiple things in life, here's the thing. All your options will work. All your options will work. But none of them could work or will not work. Now here's the thing. Let me phrase that thing. Those who have been sort of thinking or trying to choose between multiple things in life, know that all your options could work, but none of them will work because you have not chosen. You have not decided. You have not decided to do. So you have to do to know. And you do more once you know more. And then over time, you know better. And that's what wisdom is all about. You just know better. Thank you.
Tesla charge for them bank rolls and I'm grinding. Money on my mind and I'm headed to the top. I won't stop until I find it. Write my name in diamonds, but all these lights are blinding. I wonder, is it worth it? Feel like I'm losing my mind, yeah.